Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Crystals and Coffee. Today we have on Denell, who is the founder of Cervical Wellness, and she's here to talk to us about how we can activate the intelligence in our cervix and bring on confidence, power, and awakening for ourselves. So we'll bring her on in a second. Get her here. Hopefully this works. Last time we tried this, Mercury in retrograde was fucking with us hard and we couldn't get on. So I'm happy we can make this work.
Yay! We're here!
Yay!
We made it!
Hi, Denell.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm drinking my Woo Crew.
I'm glad you like the mug.
Yeah, I love it. I couldn't decide what side to show, either like this one, but I like the Woo Crew.
The Woo Crew is pretty good.
Yeah. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm good. It's actually I'm on the East Coast, so it's lunchtime-ish for me now. But I've been doing good. I saw some clients this morning and went out for a run, and then now I'm getting to talk to you. So it's been a great day so far.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm West Coast, so it's 9 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Getting ready to get started. Yeah, I love the mugs. They're awesome. Cool. Let's see, I'm gonna turn on my light. Maybe that'll be a little better. I'm excited to talk to your people about vagina and
the vagina lady.
Yeah, let's dive in.
So I was hoping first, though, you could tell us a little bit. I think anyone who founds a movement has a story to be told about how the heck they got there. Yeah, so could you tell us like how this happened for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will do my best to keep it short because the story is pretty long, but in its essence is I was diagnosed with HPV and cervical dysplasia at 19, which is an abnormal pap smear. And my doctors at Planned Parenthood, they didn't tell me anything. They told me diddly squat about what that meant or how I could help myself. All they told me was, "You're fine, just like you'll heal, you're young." Well, that casting away of me without any information led me on a 7-year journey of like increasingly worsening cervical dysplasia, which is in essence pre-cervical cancer.
Okay.
So, I was in this process of going in for pap smears, it being abnormal. My doctor's telling me that the only way I could help myself would be either to get the HPV vaccine or to have these very highly invasive surgical procedures, which I probably would have received had I not looked them up online, and I like freaked myself out. So I decided not to get them. About 4 years into having these continuous precancerous cells on my cervix and HPV continuously in my body, I was sent away to like a really big wig OBGYN because I was, quote, not listening to my medical providers. And this big wig OBGYN gave me my 7th colposcopy, which if anybody knows what a colposcopy is, it's like a biopsy of the cervix. Which is pretty painful. And she basically wheeled around to the side of me and was like, "You're not listening to us. I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do for you." And so she sent me out the door of this hospital with what I felt was like a death sentence. I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to die an early death of cervical cancer? I was like 24, 25 at the time. And I went back home and there's like this very specific moment in the shower when I was crying in the shower, just like feeling so bad about myself. And it was like a light turned on in my body where my body just came online and said, "Denell, or me, something's wrong, but we're going to figure it out. We're not going to give up." And so I set myself on this 3-year journey of learning everything I could about the cervix, about reproductive wellness, about the body's ability to regenerate and heal. I took myself back to graduate school and got my master's in integrative health just because I was so desirous to know, like, how can I help myself? How can my body do what it does naturally, which is regenerate, which is heal? Like, our body knows how to do that. And lo and behold, 7 years after my initial diagnosis, I get a call from my doctor on a Saturday, which is very strange because my doctor never called me and they never called me on a Saturday. But to tell me that my latest pap smear, which I had had that week, was clear. Like the SIN3 cervical dysplasia, which is the highest grade of cervical dysplasia you can have, was gone. HPV wasn't showing up in my body anymore. And she was literally like, "How did you do it?" And I just started laughing maniacally. I was just like over the moon happy. But that happiness very quickly devolved into anger. I got really, really upset with how little we with female bodies are told about how to tend to our pelvic health, and more so our cervical health. We go and get these pap smears done and we don't really know why or what they're checking. And when something comes back wrong, we're not told any way to support our body to help itself. We're just told, oh, you need to have these procedures done, which when they're done on, people in their late teens, early 20s, or even early 30s before you have children, it can lead to a whole host of complications around conception and birth, not to mention it harming our sexual connection, our mind-body connection to our pelvis. So that's the story in essence. I now have my platform, Cervical Wellness, which I share all the information I possibly know or could know about tending to our pelvic health and really empowering female-bodied people to take back control of their health from Western gynecology. Working in tandem, I'm not a naysayer completely, working in tandem, but really taking ownership of our pelvic health. So I'll stop there and I'll let you.
Don't stop. This is okay. An amazing journey, and I know you're not alone, and you're holding the torch for this. So, and I already see questions for you, vagina questions coming in. So please, cool. Everybody, please send your questions in so that Denell can answer them. And one which I think is Fatima sent one in that says, what are the top 3 habits you've learned for cervical wellness? How is it different from vaginal hygiene? Is that a great place to start?
Sure. Okay. Sure. So vaginal hygiene, like when I think of vaginal hygiene, I think of like keeping our vaginal microbiome healthy. So inside of our vagina, we have a whole host of bacteria that help keep the microbiota within our vagina healthy. And so like vaginal hygiene for me, when I think it was like, oh, wearing cotton panties, not using soap down there, having a healthy diet, so that like the vagina is actually like a self-cleaning dishwasher or a self-cleaning oven. Like it's like constantly, it's like constantly producing liquid to flush out anything that's not supposed to be in there. It helps keep like the pH is maintained, the microbiota is maintained. So in regards to cervical health, all of that plays a role, but specifically cervical health, I think the question was 3 habits or 3 suggestions. The first is immune system support. So the cervix and the health of the cervix is directly tied into our immune functioning. And I could go on for a long time. The cervix
You got an hour.
Oh, okay, great. We're an hour. The cervix is deeply intertwined with several other body systems. So the immune system, the nervous system, meaning some of the biggest and most powerhouse nerves of the body terminate in the cervix. So the cervix sits at the end of the vaginal canal. And the vagus nerve, which is one of our 12 cranial nerves and innervates most of our major organs, terminates in the cervix. So immune system health, nervous system health, and blood health, so circulatory health. Our pelvis, our cervix, our uterus is an organ of blood. So when I work with clients and they're like, oh, what are the top 3 things I can do? It's a nuanced question, because one, it's like looking at your lifestyle. How are you already treating your body? How are you already taking care of your whole body system? Because, as I just mentioned, the cervix is deeply intertwined to all these other systems in our body. So if your immune system is already lax from, I don't know, smoking cigarettes or late night partying all the time, that will then impact your immune system, leading your cervix to be more susceptible to an HPV infection.
Okay.
If you are highly stressed out all the time, or are living a life that you don't like, so like if you have a job that you hate, or if you are in a relationship that gives you like stress times 1,000, that stress response is going to impact your cervix and your cervix ability to function properly, because of the deep innervation of the cervix, the nervous system, all interconnected. And in regards to blood health, if you are eating a diet that is just full of trans fats, or like highly toxic foods, or are not exercising and getting your lymphatic system moving and your blood moving, that is also going to impact your cervical health and pelvic health, just because the quality of the blood circulating through there isn't going to be at its like top level, for lack of a better way of saying that. So the top 3 things that I recommend are like, one, look at your lifestyle. I use a phrase called lifestyle medicine. Like, how are you already taking care of your body? And is there anything that you can change? That I like to think of as like, okay, is this supporting my cervix, or is this taking energy away from my body to regenerate and heal the cervix? The second thing that I want to mention is sexual habit awareness. So because our cervix sits at the end of the vaginal canal and is highly innervated, a very sensitive but like powerhouse organ, oftentimes we with female bodies kind of force penetration to happen, meaning we don't allow our body time to open, to allow our body time to prepare for penetration. And actually the way the female body in physiology works in the sexual arousal response is that the uterus actually pulls the cervix up and into the body cavity. So the cervix is a part of the uterus. It's like the tip, the neck of the uterus. So when a female is sexually aroused, the ligaments of the uterus actually pull it into the body cavity to create space in the vaginal canal for penetration. But often we don't give that amount of time. And so what happens is penetration occurs and then the cervix gets hit. And so I mean, almost every person with a female body that I know can relate to that feeling of like, oh God, oh, that hurts. That's the cervix being hit. And you know, cervical stimulation can lead to pleasure, but if there isn't enough space in the vaginal canal and it's being constantly dinged, that can create damage on the face of the cervix. Like those cells get upset, they get angry, which can lead to cervical dysplasia. So sexual habit awareness is a really big one as well. And the third tip I would say would be to start to deepen your relationship with your pelvis. So I love to guide clients into bringing their awareness down from the top of their body down to the depths of their pelvis, because so often we live up here. But if we can, I invite people to vision like a stone falling through water down the central channel of their body, and you get to the uterus. But then you go a little deeper, like let's go a little deeper than the womb. Then you get into the cervix, and just holding your awareness there and noticing, am I clenching? Is there tension? Is it numb? And am I feeling pain? Like, what's going on? Because for me, cervical dysplasia, particularly cervical dysplasia, the way that I think about it is the cervix calling out for attention, that something is going wrong there because the cervix wants our attention to go there. So bringing your awareness down to the depths of your pelvis as often as you can evoke our body's natural intelligence to tell us like, hey, actually, I need you to drink more water, or like even just holding your awareness in your pelvis for 10 seconds, you might receive the inner knowing like, oh, I need to go for a walk. Like I'm stagnant here. Oh, like maybe I've had experiences where like a person's face will emerge and I realize I have healing to do around a past relationship or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that was a very long-winded answer to that first question. But as you can see, like the cervical healing journey is very multifaceted and it's not just like a cookie cutter experience. So I'm happy to answer more questions.
Yeah, no, that was a amazing, not long-winded, perfect answer.
Great, great.
So yeah, so obviously, it's like mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, energetic all go into the health of our cervix and everywhere else because everything is connected. If some of that sounds like, oh my gosh, holy shit, where do I start? Well, where do I start? I mean, I think if this is the first time this is like hitting somebody, even about like, what are some foods for cervical wellness and what are maybe some other stuff maybe on each level that somebody could try?
Sure, yeah. So some of the best foods for cervical wellness are cruciferous vegetables. So anything that has folic acid in it. Cruciferous vegetables being broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. Those foods have been proven to greatly support cervical health. And as well as like saturated fats, cold water fish. So if you eat meat like salmon or sardines, cold water fish have also been proven to support. If you don't eat meat, legumes are proven to support cervical health. And I'm just going to say this again, drinking lots of water, people. Like, it's amazing how chronically dehydrated we are. And like when our body is chronically dehydrated, it has to allocate what I call internal resources to just functioning in a dehydrated state. And we want to allocate those internal resources down to our cervix so that our cervix can regenerate, because our cervix is always growing new cells. And so the more easeful experience we can give our body, the better we can allocate those internal resources to our cervix. So drink more water than you think you might want to. Okay, so herbs are a great way too. So doing vaginal steams, you can make herbal suppositories with like essential oils. So like coconut oil and like a couple drops of an essential oil like rosemary, or you can even use rose. Put those in a little ice cube tray, stick them in the freezer, and then you could pop one of those you could like choose like a little ice cube tray with small ice cubes, pop those out and stick one in there at night.
Really?
That's a really easy way to do a suppository. So those are some of the physical ways. You can also do vaginal douching with herbs. So douching gets a really bad rap because
it's the packaging.
Yeah.
From the 80s.
Right. The douches that you buy in the store are like highly chemicaled, they're just like all chemicals. But you can buy a douche bulb and make an herbal tea and douche. What a douche does is it gets the herbs right up in there. And because you're not going to wash it off, it will take the body, the self-cleaning oven mechanism of the vagina to rinse it out, but it'll take a few days. So it allows the herbs to marinate in there. Calendula is a great herb. Golden seal, arco. So those are some physical things. Let's see. You said
If you're
mental.
trying, so let me ask you this question
Yeah.
before we move on to our next category, because all this is wildly informative and fascinating.
Yeah.
The so let's say the suppositories and the douching part of it, that arena, how often should you do that if your vagina is healthy, unhealthy, or you only do it when you're feeling unhealthy?
Right, so I only did it when I had a diagnosis. I do
Okay.
not do an herbal douche or herbal suppository right now. It was like medicine for me. It was like, this
Okay.
is my prescription. This is what I'm doing. I don't do that anymore. I do vaginal steam though. I do vaginal steam once a week. And if you do have a diagnosis, um, I recommend, or like I don't like to say recommend because I'm not a doctor, but I invite people to douche like once every 2 weeks or like once a month, because it takes a little bit for it to clean out. So it's just like up there marinating. And
Yeah.
I've had clients do a suppository like once every 3 or 4 days, maybe once a week. Again, the trick to the cervical healing journey is that it's not a quick fix, is that we are unwinding things within our body, somatically, energetically. And so I like to tell my clients that it's a marathon and not a sprint,
Yes.
and to be in it for the long haul and like make these, whatever you're doing, something that you really enjoy to participate in, knowing that you won't have to do it later. Like I don't do douches anymore,
Yeah.
but I still do vaginal steaming. So yeah, go slowly. The thing about healing journeys that I have found is that people can do too much at once, and then they get overwhelmed, and then they stop. So for like the way that I guide my clients is like, okay, let's just do like one or two things now, and then like a month or two later, we'll incorporate something else in. It's really easy to be all gung ho, be like, we're doing it right now, but it's best to be able to integrate it into your life. We're changing our lifestyle, we're incorporating it into our lifestyle medicine. Yeah,
How
so
about
should
the
I?
emotional?
Yeah, the emotional. This
Oh
is the
boy.
this is the deep part. This is like the actual like nitty gritty of the cervical healing journey. And really what it comes down to is looking at all of your unprocessed sexual experiencing. So I'd say like 98% of the people that work with me have a whole sexual history that they have just shoved into a closet and don't want to think about. It's like you remember those memories and you maybe cringe. You're like, oh God, I did that, or that person, or like I was so drunk, I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
The trick, not the trick, the process of processing your sexual I call it your her story, is vital. So I invite all my clients to literally like make a timeline of their sexual experiencing, from like when's the first time someone like touched your body that wasn't your family? When was the first time? When was your first kiss? When like was the first time you started to explore sexuality? When was the first time you were penetrated? And then like on the timeline listing out like, oh, I had like this relationship, or like for me, like, oh, this 3-year period where I had a lot of new sexual partners, and like actively remembering them and allowing my body to process it. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of shame spirals. There was just coming to terms with what my pelvis experienced. And I sought outside help. Like I have been going to therapy for many years now. I have a partner, my husband now, but he was my partner at the time, and he held me through a lot of crying about just my past. And like while I was on my cervical healing journey, reversing these diagnoses and going through this emotional work, like he would penetrate me and I would just start crying. I would just like start crying because I was starting to unpack the energy that was held in my cervix, because our cervix remembers everything that has ever penetrated us. And so even if you don't remember in your mind, maybe because you were inebriated or dissociated, the cervix remembers. And as I mentioned earlier, I see cervical dysplasia as the voice of our cervix being like, please, please come and pay attention to me. I have a lot I want to share with you. I am holding a lot. There's just so much here that I need to express. And once it's expressed, once that energy is cleared, once we've gone through the emotions, it's like the body's just like, okay, we're done. And then healthy cells are produced. So I was speaking with a naturopath doctor about this once, and she's like, Denell, like, I wouldn't have believed you a few years ago, but after having so many clients with cervical dysplasia come to me crying about their sexual past,
Mm-hmm.
I now realize, like, oh, this is a big part of it. And so, yeah, coming to terms with your pelvis, like our female pelvis, and what has happened. Um, and then, like, a side note I want to say is that also your mother's sexual history. So when you were in utero, or even before you were born, whatever was in her cervix or her pelvis unprocessed uh, was transferred to us as well. And so part of my work is doing ancestral healing through the mother line via the cervix, which is a whole other conversation we can go into, but we are
Yeah.
we're holding all that. So yeah, there's a lot. There's the cervical healing journey is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
No.
Uh,
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I'm not saying it eloquently, but the phrase like we are of our grandmother's wombs, because our mother's eggs were forming while she was in our grandmother. So at least, I know also as well, looking at a different side with ancestral trauma also in my work, that it's like, I mean, you're going at least back to the grandmother, at least, if not, hundreds of thousands of years where the trauma could have come from. But it's wild to think about that if you're the last woman, so to say, or in your generation so far, or your line so far, that you're literally, since whoever your first Eve was, you're holding all of that information.
yes, yes, yeah. So one thing that I've been tuning into recently is like, why is there such this upswell of reproductive health issues in modern women right now? And the way that I think about it is like, oh, this is all of that stuff that we're holding in our lines, like coming up to be processed. Like it's been energetically in our pelvis, in our body, and now it's like pushing out into the physical. And if we choose, we can cleanse that, we can heal that. And, my mother is still alive, and I have noticed just in me doing this process and working with my cervix and working towards healing my cervix, even though I don't have a diagnosis anymore, I still consider myself on the cervical healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed a change in her. Like
Yeah.
there's like a real ripple, like energetically, and it's just like, whoa, okay. I'm getting chills talking about it. Like this is deep work.
Yeah. You're reminding me, I was just talking to a client about that this morning, about doing some personal work. And I said, one of my teachers, Alberto, always said to me, whenever you do something, it ripples 7 generations forward and 7 generations back, at least. And really taking that idea that I would see myself do personal work of some kind, and I'd see something like open in my family somewhere, that I was like, oh, please stop doing that, or oh, that's not good for you, or whatever I was thinking in my head. And all of a sudden it stopped. It was healed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. And with the cervix in particular, a lot of the energy that can be freed has to do with using our voice, has to do with like being in our body as an embodied woman or as an embodied female bodied person. Yeah, I don't want to put any story on anybody, but these are just the themes that I have noticed. It's very, very powerful.
Okay,
Um,
so that's physical. So physical, we know our foods and our herbs and douching and all the things. Emotional, we're going to take a look at ancestral trauma. What about the mental?
yeah, so the mental, this is where I invite clients to really start to look at what are the thoughts they're saying about their female body. Because at least here in the United States, I'll just say I'll use I statements. I grew up really not liking being a female. I remember very viscerally wanting to be a boy. Like,
Okay.
and when I was in elementary school, maybe even I just remember thinking, God, it's like so much easier for them, especially when I started my period. Um, and so what I invite clients to do is to look at the thoughts they're having about their cervix, about their uterus, about their pelvis. What limiting beliefs do they have around their sexuality, around their ability to heal? This is a big one because the power of belief, the biology of belief, is a real phenomena. And if we tell ourselves like, "Oh, I can't do this," "Oh, I'm not ever going to heal," "Oh, woe is me, I'm going to get cervical cancer," you're setting yourself up for that to be a reality. And so really, I mean, nobody likes to be told like, "Oh, your thoughts are harming you." I know that I get a little like, "Don't tell me that." But it's a real thing, like really checking yourself when you start to get down on your body. And I am the first person to admit that I used to have the worst thoughts about particularly my pelvis. Before I decided to actually figure out what was happening in my body, I would actually take my fist and hit myself because I was just so frustrated, so ungodly frustrated with having these continued abnormal pap smears. So uh, I invite all of us to start to have in our inner world, like in our mind, in our inner experience in our body, to start to send loving thoughts to our pelvis. Like in every meditation I lead or any group program I lead, I always start with us like cupping our vulva, not even just putting our hands over our womb, but like cupping the vulva. So it's like you're holding your cervix and just like sending like through your mind, like pulses of love there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would say again, most of my clients are dissociated from their pelvis. They're just like they're not living in their pelvis. And so we must engage our mind to like, oh, okay, I'm going to be here and I'm going to one, look at what thoughts are emerging when I am here. And two, I'm going to be proactive in speaking positive things to my body, saying positive, loving things. And um, just that in of itself can give us the inner drive and sense of perseverance to be like, okay, I can do this. Like, we've got this body, like we're together. All right, let's do this. Like it's really an alliance. It's like between your mind and your body, it's an alliance.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how about the spiritual or energetic level?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is, yeah. I'm like starting to sweat. There's like so much coming through. Um,
Good.
the spiritual. I'm just tuning into my cervix, what wants to be said. So the spiritual, so whenever I have been guided on like a visualization or meditation to send my roots down to the earth, it's always come from my tailbone, my sacrum, or the bottom of my feet. But I have been guided by my own body to start to send what I call our cervical root
I love
down
that.
through our vaginal canal and connect to the earth. And what this does is it actually like opens up and brings up earth energy into our pelvis. So, the female body is the embodiment of earth. Like we are the generative, creative humans on this planet. And so when we can open up our pelvis, open up our vaginal canal, and like receive that energy from our planet through our vaginal canal, through the cervical os, which is the hole, like the canal in the middle of the cervix that leads to the inside of the uterus. I mean, we can just imbue and like suck up the most magical healing energy just straight from our planet. And so like even now, like I invite everybody just like tune into their pelvic floor for a moment, tune into their vaginal canal, tune into where you think you might know where your cervix is. You could do it with your eyes open, and then just envision like this beautiful golden glowing root emerging from your vaginal canal, from your cervix, and like connecting to the earth. And for me, what I notice is like my inner thighs relax, my labia relax, the vaginal walls relax, and like maybe I'll start to sit up taller. So that's like one spiritual practice. Um, you know, the other theme that I have been noticing coming through in terms of the spiritual essence of the cervix has to do with the dark goddess. This is such a big topic. I can't believe I'm going to broach
Lady,
this.
keep going.
So the dark goddess for me is like the primordial dark mother. So in like you think of like the blackest black of cosmic potential, and from that blackness like spark of life comes. The cervix holds the codes of the dark goddess within our body, it being this literal interdimensional portal from between the womb and the world. And cervix is like the same template as, say, like a black hole, where like we don't know what's on the other side of a black hole, but physicists theorize as like, oh, it's like an interdimensional portal. Like, who knows? But when I saw the image that was put out about a year ago of like the first photograph of a black hole, I was astounded because it looks like a cervix. Like if I'll send it to you in the DMs, and then you can put in your stories if you want.
Please.
But it looks like a cervix, like the great cervix of the universe. So the energetics of the dark goddess in our cervix, what they mean to me and what I teach and what I've been guided to teach is that cervix holds the codes of like the primordial potential within our body, because it's through the cervix energetically and spiritually that our truest essence can be birthed through. So who we are, our creative ideas, our creative visions are generated and gestated in our pelvis. But in order for them to come from that one dimension, the dimension within our body, the universe of inside of our body, to this dimension, to this reality, it must be birthed through the cervix. And so for me, the dark goddess codes of the cervix are really about tapping into our latent primordial potential within our body, whatever that means for each one of us. It's different for every person. But for me, what it's looked like is being more in my sexuality, being more in my like carnal, primal essence. Yeah, and like the other thing I want to talk about this dark goddess energy is I received a vision once of how this dark goddess energy is within every single one of our female bodies, and it's looking to be expressed. It wants to come out through the like movement of our hips, through like the orgasmic potential of our body, through like allowing our creative endeavors to be birthed and our voice to be used. When that doesn't happen, when we stop it, when we prevent it from coming through, that dark goddess energy is so powerful that were like pushing it down, it starts to become corrosive and it starts to become putrid in the pelvis. And this vision that I received showed me that this putrefying, corrosive dark goddess energy is what is leading to all of these reproductive health issues. Is just this unexpressed, untapped into like cosmic potential that we have within our pelvis. And, you know, it's really interesting what happens to my clients when they like fully decide to go into their cervix and fully decide to unleash that potential within their bodies. I'd say it's like interesting. I'd say like 85% of them have changed their life course and are now like advocates for the female body. And they're either like doing their own work in reproductive health or they're doing their own work in regards to supporting women. Because quite frankly, this was not my vision of my future 10 years ago. I did not think this is what I would be doing. But once I like really began to feel into and not just heal myself, but feel the power of the cervix in my body and what this means for my life, I had to talk about it. I had to start sharing this because it is just, I feel like it's the missing piece in like female embodiment. Because there's so much talk around like, oh, womb work and go into your womb and heal the womb. And I'm like, okay, the womb is amazing. Uterus, like, yes, let's heal our womb. But let's go a little deeper. Like let's go to the depths of our pelvis and see what's there. And magic can ensue.
I love, you know what? That's why I was smiling when you brought up the dark goddess, because that's one of my favorite conversations.
Amazing.
And I think, you know, I think that it is where we are right now in our timeline as humans. Women have been taught to fear the dark goddess. And for anybody that's like, who the hell is the dark goddess? Like, if you think about archetypes of like in the Indian tradition, Kali Ma, right? Mm-hmm. Or with Greek goddesses, Persephone, or in the Celtic tradition, the Kaliak, like these just like, you know, it's the all mother, it's the all powerful, like extreme point of where creation comes from. And that energy is so big, right? It's as big as that black hole that you were talking about. And I think women, let's just say, I think throughout history, everyone has been taught to fear that energy, whether they identify as a man, woman, or however they choose to identify, that feminine force has been taught to us that it's bad. And for people that are walking around right now with vaginas, that it's like, okay, you have to harness that, like, you know, power that down, because that's just, you're too much, you know, it's too much, you just can't, you know. And I think that's, well, it's not healthy. I think you know that, but I love that we're talking about this.
Yes, yeah, this is actually like one of my favorite parts of talking about the female body, because just as you mentioned, we're told that's like, oh, we're too sexy, or we're too big, or too loud, or too shiny.
Stop talking about your vagina. How about that?
Right. Oh God. Someone posted something on a post I made yesterday being like, this is weird. Like some guy who's like, man, this must have been developed by someone who took too much LSD. This is crazy. And I'm like, okay, dude. The pelvic potential of the female body is ginormous, and we have been taught to not accept it, not love it, to fear it, as you mentioned, and to just squash it down, sequester it. And I'm here to say, no, let's give it space. Let's give it space to move and express, and the world around us will then change very viscerally.
Truly. Yeah. Okay. Well, the dark goddess came up, and now there's lots of questions.
Okay, cool. I haven't been tracking the questions.
I got you, lady. I got you. So So Moonful Mama asks, can you talk about kind of how our cervix is connected to manifestation work?
Sure. Yes. Ooh, I love this. So there are two, okay, I teach, and okay, this is not in any like science or medical book. Most of like the spiritual, energetic knowledge that I teach actually has come just through my own inner experiencing and then talking about it and then having to be reflected to me like, oh, this is real. I'm like, okay, awesome. So I know the cervix to have two energy flows. There is the centripetal force of energy, which draws in. So the cervix, you can think of the cervix as like a torus or a toroid. Um, and the flow of energy drawing in, like I'm trying to twist the torus so it looks like it's drawing energy in. This is the type of energy, the energy flow of the cervix that draws in the phallus into the vagina. This is the energy that draws in the semen into the cervical canal for conception. But we can actually tap into that energy flow, that centripetal flow, for the purpose of drawing into our bodily experience whatever we desire. So, but before I go into that a little more, I want to talk about the other flow of energy, which is important to tap into before you decide to start manifesting through your cervix, which is the centrifugal energy, which is the if there's if you don't know what a torus is or a toroid, it's like a fourth dimensional shape that kind of looks like a donut, but it spins. I invite you to look it up if you don't know what it is. The centrifugal energy actually pushes out. So like the spinning energy of the cervix that pushes out. So like the vaginal canal is up here, it pushes it out of the vagina. This is the energy that draws menstrual blood out, that draws abortion or miscarriage blood out. It's what draws babies out. But we can also use that energy, the centrifugal energy, to draw out anything in our pelvis that we no longer want or need. And so I invite people to start with that energy first to clear the space of our pelvis before we start drawing things into us. Because we want room for whatever we're manifesting in our life to grow and to spread within our body system and in our life. So the centrifugal energy, like people will ask me like, well, how do you tap into it? For me, it's just a purely like an invitation to my body. I'm just allowing it to happen. Where I'll close my eyes and I'll visualize my cervix starting to spin in this way, where it's like, okay, I'm drawing out whatever from my pelvis, and perhaps I will have like a specific experience or a specific person, and just in my meditation, I will like sap it from my body through the centrifugal force of my cervix. And once that I've done that, then I will consider, okay, well, what do I want to draw into my life? Maybe I want to draw in more like closer friendships, or a partner, or more clients, or I don't know, a vacation to Hawaii, whatever. And then in like the times when I'm like alone or I'm in the bath, I'll even do this, friends, when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, and it's like, right now with COVID, the grocery store lines are very long. And so I'll just like be sitting there, and I'm that person that's like doing cervical energy work in line at the grocery store, just like feeling myself draw in that which I am calling in. And I visualize it like a stream of essence, like a stream of energy flowing and being caught in that centripetal force of my cervix and being drawn into my pelvis. Because once it's in my pelvis, once it's in my womb space, then it can grow, then it can gestate, then it can like bubble and it's like it's in the cauldron. It's starting to simmer and get all warm and hot, and eventually, over time, that will manifest itself in the physical world. I hope that made sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We had another question here. What do you think about, where did it go? What do you think about the porn industry? How does that affect us as women?
Oh my gosh. Whoa. I have two strong opinions. One opinion is that people can do whatever they want with their bodies, and if they're making porn or pornographic videos or photos and they're empowered in the experience, awesome. Like, do it. That's great. The other side of it is that it is teaching men or people with male bodies to not fully understand the female sexual arousal response. Because in most porn, it's like all of a sudden she's wet in a moment and then he can penetrate her as hard and as fast as he wants without any consideration. And there's some porn videos that I've seen where I'm like, I see her face and I'm like, oh, that actually hurts. Like, I can tell that is like hurting her cervix just by like her eyes. Maybe she's smiling and moaning, but like you can see it in her eyes. So it's really interesting. I once taught a workshop at Sonoma State University, which is here in California, and it was called Demystifying the Female Sexual Experience, I was talking about like the cervix and how space is created in the vaginal canal and whatnot. And it was 90% men that showed up. And they're like, we had no idea this happened in the female body. I'm like, thank you for being here, college age dudes, for learning. But yeah, the porn industry it's purely cosmetic. It's not actually like, it doesn't show the fact that it takes 30 to 45, even sometimes 60 minutes for the female body to be fully open and ready for penetration. Yeah. There's like real physiological things that happen in the pelvis that make it safe for penetration to happen. Otherwise, physical damage can happen. And, then you're like sore for days on end, or like nothing can come near your vaginal opening, or else it's like all tender and red. So, porn for enjoyment, or like if you want to watch it with a partner to get the vibe going, that's great. Porn as like sex education is terrible and just should not even be considered a way to learn about sex, but more as like, oh, this is a movie that is fictional. That's the way that I see it. Yeah.
That's a really good point to bring up, that it's not a tool for sex education, because when kids start watching porn and see that, that's what they think is real.
Right. My own husband.
Way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. My own husband, he's admitted to me, he started watching porn when he was like 13.
Yeah.
Maybe even 12. And, he's had to unlearn a lot over, the last 20 something years. And, and it also desensitizes to real intimacy, where people think like, oh, like she has to be all like hot and moaning all the time, when really actually the female sexual response, obviously in orgasm you can get loud and big, but generally when like the story goes, and what I've read and what sex experts have told me, is that when we're feeling pleasure, we're actually more internal and we're like feeling it, and it's not like this outward showy experience. So that's why I say porn is fiction. Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad we talked about that.
Yeah.
So Denell, we only have a few minutes left, and there's been so many people. I know an hour has passed.
That's crazy.
There's been so many people on here thanking you for your work and what you're doing and standing up as teacher in this way. I was wondering if you could take the last couple of minutes because I was looking on your website and I know you have a book and you have a course. Like, how can people find you after this talk if they want to learn more? Lots of hearts on that one.
Yay! Aw. Yeah, so come find me on Instagram, Cervical Wellness. I'm there often. My website is cervicalwellness.com, and I do have a book out. It's called Informed, Aware, Empowered: A Self-Guided Journey to Clear Paths. Excuse me. So it's really the book that I wish I had when I was 19, 20, 21, going into really most of what you need to know to be rid of an HPV and cervical dysplasia diagnosis. I have since elaborated on those teachings, and I have a course called the Cervical Wellness Online Masterclass Series, which is like a deep dive into the cervical healing journey, which that one will open at the end of August. Right now I have a course launched called Cervix Codes, which is not about healing the diagnosis, but it's about activating your cervix for confidence, for awakening, for embodiment. So it's really like for anybody who wants to bring their cervix on board into their daily life, to feel that that sense of connection, to feel that confidence which comes from embodying our pelvis. And anybody who signs up for Cervix Codes will actually get a coupon for the Masterclass series, because Cervix Codes is actually a bonus in the Masterclass series. So the Cervix Codes course is a great beginning step. Like if you're like, I don't even know what it means to work with my cervix. Yeah. This is I go through like very basic, like, okay, these are the breathing, this is the touching practice, this is what you need to think about. Maternal lineage healing, let's start to think about that. And all that information is on my website, cervicalwellness.com. And I would love to have anybody here watching to join the cervical wellness community. We have hundreds of women from around the world who are doing this work together, and it's really powerful to know that we're not alone in not only reversing or healing diagnoses, but just coming back into our body, coming back into our pelvis, and noticing the shifts and changes that happen in our life when we do invite our cervix into our life. So yeah, reach out, people. I'd love to connect. And if you buy the book, let me know. It makes me really excited when people buy the book. It was a really big journey to write it. But now it's out there, and I want people to know about the beauty of the cervix, that it can heal, it does heal, and it's possible. So send me a DM, send me a message, reach out, say hi. Yeah.
I love that. And I've seen several other comments in here. People are like, oh my God, I just joined. Shit, I missed the first part. I am going to be reposting this, and Denell will also get the video as well, and she can do what she may with it. But you will be able to see this on my IGTV, so I will repost this. You can hear every word she said. And lady, I want to thank you. You are doing big work, and demystifying a topic that's become so dark, naughty, hush hush, don't talk about it, scary, weird, and it shouldn't be. So thank you on behalf of all women. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Colleen, for having me. It's been a joy to be here.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.